Alright, yeah, we are back here for part 2 of the top 100 greatest albums ever made. This is part 2, numbers 50 through number 1. If you have not seen the first part, number 100 through number 51, I would recommend to check that out. What's up, little pooch? What's up, little poochie? Just barge in here like that. How rude. Gonna pop a squat on my bed. So let's just get right into it. We're gonna try and not have this video be an hour long like the last one, but it could end up being that long. Who knows? So we'll just jump right into it. Number 50 is the self-titled The Velvet Underground self-titled album by The Velvet Underground, released in 1969. Another timeless, perfect proto-punk alternative piece by the Velvet Underground and specifically Lou Reed. A fantastic album. I'm pretty sure nobody is not expecting to see this album on that list. Number 49, the album that kind of revived punk in the 1990s, Dookie by Green Day, released in 1994. Fantastic album. Like I said, it pretty much revived the whole genre in the 90s, which is just such a big deal. And obviously the track everybody knows, I would say Basket Case is probably the best track on that album. Number 48 is The Joshua Tree by U2. One of the best alternative albums ever made. A fantastic alternative rock album that I'm pretty sure, again, a solid portion of you guys who clicked on this video probably expected it to make its way on here. And there it is, a top 50 album of all time, number 48. Number 47, the greatest album ever produced by Queen. The magnum opus of Queen's discography, in my opinion. Every song on it is absolutely fantastic. Innuendo, released in 1991. Yeah. Take all of the fantastic masterpieces that are put on this album, The Show Must Go On, title track, songs like that. And also keep in mind that Freddie Mercury performed this on his deathbed, essentially. And you just cannot give it enough credit. Number 46, getting some post-punk in here, some post-punk borderline new wave type stuff, a lot of stuff that we saw in the first part of the list. It is This Year's Model by Elvis Costello. I want to say it was released in 78 or 79. I'm not 100% sure. If you watch the first part of the video, you will know that I didn't do research on the years. If I say a year of an album, that's just coming off the top of my head. I could be wrong. Feel free to roast me however you want. Number 45 is Rio by Duran Duran. Probably one of the greatest written new wave albums of all time. New wave was already starting to creep its way up to the top in terms of mainstream success in the 1980s, but when Rio came out in 1982, that was the album that made it the definitive genre of the early 80s. Number 44, The Queen is Dead by The Smiths. Again, this is one of those albums I'm pretty sure everybody expected to see on here, so I don't really need to get into that too much. Number 43 is the greatest Elton John album he ever made. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I do believe that this album is better than Honky Chateau, but it could go either way. I personally just think that this album is so much better than anything him or anyone like him ever made. It's absolutely fantastic. Number 42, getting into more rap stuff, we're talking about Illmatic by Nas, one of the greatest rap albums of the 1990s. And it was one of those albums that helped push the genre ahead and make the whole rap, hip hop rap, make that whole genre one of the most definitive genres today. And so you got to think, a few key people, one of them being Nas for this album, which truly helped with that. Number 41 is The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, released in 1973. One of the greatest albums ever written. I put it a little bit back on the list at 41, just like with Wish You Were Here, which was in the first part. Those albums are a little bit further back because I don't want to oversaturate the top 10 with Pink Floyd albums. That's just not fair to the other artists who created legendary albums. So I put them back a little bit. Number 40, I got this one on vinyl. Gonna get into the vinyl collection here. If I have an album on vinyl, I'll probably just show it. Number 40, one of the greatest metal albums to ever be made. In my personal opinion, it is the greatest metal album to ever be made, but I know a lot of people won't agree with me on that. So, number 40 is Peace of Mind by Iron Maiden. A fantastic metal album from the 1980s. And, it's absolutely an incredible metal album. Number 38, I also have this one on vinyl. Number 38, the punk album of all punk albums, the greatest punk the greatest punk album ever made. Never mind the Bullocks. Here's the Sex Pistols, released in 1977. Like I said, it's simple. It's the greatest punk album ever made. I know that there's no debate on that. Oh, I have Rio. I didn't even know that. Oh, from a little earlier. I do have Rio. I had absolutely no idea. All right. Where are we at? Number 38. One of the most successful rock albums of the 1990s. We're talking about Get a Grip by Aerosmith. A few people are probably wondering, what is this album doing on this list at all, let alone so far up. And it's simple. It is one of the best sounding rock albums of the 90s. And no one can disagree with me on that. Everybody in the band was on it, especially Steven Tyler. And when you got really fantastic rock ballads like Amazing, Crying, or Crazy, all of those, you got to give it credit. It's a fantastic rock album. Number 37, yes, I am putting this album this low. I'm sorry, but it's just not it's just not a top 10 album of all time. Number 37 is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. It's just not a top 10. It's not a top 10 album. It is a fantastic album. It's a top 30, a top where I have 37. Like, it could even be a top 35, maybe even a top 30 album of all time. But there's Beatles albums that are better. And it's not, because it's impossible to rank albums, because it truly is impossible to rank the greatest albums of all time. You can't really make a correct top 20 list. It's not fair to oversaturate the top 10, top 15 with one artist. That's why the Pink Floyd albums are back. That's why some Beatles albums are a little back here. But yeah, it's back here for a reason. Number 36, the greatest Southern rock album to ever be made. Honestly, this is a Southern rock folk, a mix. Harvest by Neil Young. It's simple. Like I just said, it's the greatest Southern rock album of all time. Very simple. Number 35, the greatest metal album ever made. The greatest metal album ever made. Number 35, Master of Puppets by Metallica, released in 1986. It's Metallica. Do I have to further explain this? It's Metallica. You knew they were going to show up on here. Number 34 is Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses, released in 1987. A legendary album. It has a legendary status. It's one of the most popular albums ever made. And it started the career of one of the most polarizing and just absolutely legendary bands of the late 80s and early 90s. And this was the start of something that would just absolutely take over rock and music as a whole from 87 till about 92, 93. Number 33. Number 33 is Led Zeppelin 4 by Led Zeppelin. Of course, it's on here. I'm sure you guys were expecting that. It's as simple as that, honestly. Number 32, another one that I'm pretty sure everybody was expecting to see on this list. Number 32 is Ramones by the Ramones. They're self-titled. One of the greatest punk albums ever made. So, yeah, it's simple. You guys knew it was going to be on here. And you're going to be starting to see that a lot more now. Going up this list, because all of the obvious ones are going to be up here. Number 31. Dare I say it's the greatest album ever released in the 1950s. Number 31. The legend himself, Rockin' and Rollin' with Fats Domino. I actually think it might be called just Rockin' Rollin' with Fats Domino. But you guys know what album I'm talking about. Released in 1956. This album started... I wouldn't say it started rock and roll, but this album helped project it into what it would become in future years, and we can only, we can only thank Fats Domino for everything he ever did for the music community. A legend. He is a legend, and I know I'll never forget him. Hopefully, society will never forget him. He was a legend, and if he hasn't already, he is in history as one of the greatest musicians ever, because I mean that is truly what he is. Number 30. Let me explain here. Let me explain number 30. Number 30 is Igor by Tyler, the Creator, released in 2018. Now, before you click off of this video and you try and hunt me down, let me explain why this is here. This is a very, very, very unique album. I understand that Childish Gambino and other musical artists like that have made albums that kind of represent a classic hip-hop lo-fi vibe, and they incorporate rap into it. I know it's been done before, but Tyler, the Creator, perfected it with this album, and it's going to start something totally new. And 30 years from now, 20, 30 years from now, we will be looking at this album thinking, this is a great album. This is one of the greatest albums of all time. So I'm just ahead of the curve here. I am just ahead of the curve. Give it 20, 25 years, this album will be there. It will be there. And you guys won't be laughing at my pick for number 30. It will become a top 30 album of all time. Just give it a few years, because it's going to start something. It's going to start something incredible. Number 29. Woo! Number 29 is Thriller by Michael Jackson. It's Michael Jackson. You knew at least one of his albums was going to make it on here. And, yeah, look at that tiger cub. Is this not the most 1980s thing you've ever seen? But, yeah, there it is. It's on there. You're welcome. Number 28 is Kid A by Radiohead. It's Radiohead. You know that they can make a good album. So, I'm sure you expected this and another one. Don't worry, the other one is on here. Number 27, Rolling Stone ranked this number 1 on their 500 greatest albums of all time list. While I don't think it's necessarily that good, I do agree that it is very, very, very good. Number 20, where are we at? 27 is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. What? Like, you weren't expecting this on here? This is an incredible album. Thinking about this, I might have ranked it a little too low. If I did this again, I might move it up a few. But, yeah. You expected this. I expected this. Here it is. While it's not necessarily the greatest album ever made, it is one of the greatest albums ever made. See, number 26. Another Rolling Stones album. Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones. Again, another great album from the Rolling Stones discography. I don't think this is the last one we're going to see either. Number 25, getting into some post-punk type, post-punk type music. We're getting into Blondie, their debut in 1976. A fantastic post-punk album that deserves way more recognition. Obviously Debbie Harry steals the show. She always has. And this started a musical empire that they would have from the 1970s, late 1970s till about 81. So they would have a firm grasp on the musical world for a couple years there. Number 24, staying in the post-punk genre. One of the most underappreciated albums. It's starting to become a little bit more appreciated nowadays, but it's still nowhere near the level of respect it needs to have. We're talking Marquee Moon by Television, released in 1978. A fantastic album. Oh gosh, what a great album. And I wouldn't totally disagree with somebody if they said that this was the greatest post-punk album ever made. It's just that good. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. It is fantastic. And it started something. It's one of those albums that predicted what 80s music was going to sound like. And it helped shape music for decades to come. Number 23. Here it is, number 23. The legend himself getting in here. We did a lot of Velvet Underground stuff, but his solo work finally coming into play here. I kind of wish I ranked this higher. Not gonna lie. I definitely wish I ranked this higher now that I think about it. This could be a top 20 album of all time. Putting it at number 23, I don't think I think I might want to redo that. Released in 1972, Transformer by Lou Reed is one of the greatest alternative experimental albums ever made. It might be the greatest alternative experimental album ever made. And, there are so many great songs on here. You got, I don't even know, you got Vicious. Vicious is on there. You got Satellite of Love. Walk on the Wild Side. Perfect Day. Perfect Day is probably the strongest piece on there. Good Night Ladies, another really, really good one. So, yeah. This album is just different. It is a different breed. Yeah. I'm looking at this. No, you can't beat this album. This album is a top 20 album of all time, but can't change it now. So I guess it's 23. Number 22. Shoot, it's another one. Got it in here somewhere. Here it is. Number 22, Tommy by The Who. The gigantic double album, concept album. A lot of songs, a lot of great tunes. Come on. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I would say that the best song on this album is Go to the Mirror or Tommy, Can You Hear Me? They're back to back. Yeah, just looking through this is absolutely incredible. Did my dog leave? I didn't even notice. Number 21. Here is the other Radiohead album. Don't worry, I didn't miss it. It's OK Computer by Radiohead, coming in at number 21, released in 2000. Yeah, it's you knew it was going to be on here. You knew it was going to be on here. There it is. It's on here. You can take a breath now. Number 20. We're into the top 20 now. That's right. You probably just saw me pull it out. The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, released by David Bowie in 1972. David Bowie. There he is. You all can breathe now. Again, that's an original album right there. That's an original from 1972. I wonder how much some of these albums are worth. I wonder if they're worth anything. But yeah, I'm not saying much about this album because what do you not already know? It is a fantastic album. Starman is probably the best song on the album. And yeah, it is if you've never listened to it before, take my word, it is a top 20 album of all time. Number 19, one of the greatest rap albums of all time as well. Number 19 is The Chronic by Dr. Dre, released in 1992. This was the album that really jump-started rap throughout the 90s, and it helped hip-hop and rap become one of the leading genres throughout the 1990s and 2000s, and even today. So thank Dr. Dre for rap today, if that's what you're into. Number 18. Another Pink Floyd album. Number 18, Atom Heart Mother. A wild card there, I know. By Pink Floyd, released in 1970. Bet a lot of you weren't expecting Atom Heart Mother to make this list, but here it is, and all the way up at number 18. What? It's a great album. It's a great album. I would say Fat Old Son is probably the best, but we can't talk about this album without acknowledging the 23-minute epic that is the Atom Heart Mother Suite, and the 13-minute epic that is Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast. A lot of long songs on here, but stick through the whole album. It is fantastic. Number 17, Let It Bleed by the Rolling Stones. I may or may not have the vinyl for that one. I'm not even going to take the time to look at that, though. Yeah, more Rolling Stones. We knew it was going to make it. It's that simple. Number 16, probably the greatest post-punk, if you want to call it post-punk. I'm going to call it post-punk. The greatest post-punk album ever made. Remain in Light by the Talking Heads. Released in 1980. You may find yourself living in a shotgun shack. You may find yourself in another part of the world. Yeah, come on. We knew this was going to be on here. That's easy. Easy money. Number 15. Again, you could have guessed it was going to be on here. Ready to Die by the Notorious B.I.G. A legend in the hip-hop and rap community. And it honestly never really seemed like he was getting the amount of respect he deserved, because he was truly a legend. And he's finally getting the respect he deserves. Hey, the dog's back. And yeah, of course he deserves to be here. This album is definitely a top 15 album of all time. One of the greatest hip-hop albums ever made. Number 14, getting a little older. I know there hasn't been a wide selection of older albums on this list, but here's another one, and there's a couple others that are going to be making their way through. Number 14 is I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You by Aretha Franklin, released in 1967. She's a legend. You knew she was going to be on here. What else do you want me to say? It's Aretha Franklin. It is Aretha Franklin. It's Aretha Franklin. I don't know what else you want me to say. Number 13 is London Calling by The Clash. Again, another post-punk. Fantastic. This might be regular punk. You could probably count it as regular punk. But yeah, this album was created with such precision and intelligence that you can't leave it out of this list. And yeah, it's easily a top 15 album of all time. Number 12 is Use Your Illusion 1 by Guns N' Roses. Their debut in 1987, Appetite for Destruction, was the build-up to this fantastic album. It was actually a set of 2 albums, Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2, but Use Your Illusion 1 has November Rain. But yeah, no, that song alone brings this album into legendary status. So, yeah. Number 11. We're moving on. Number 11. Y'all Can Breathe. Here it is. Number 11, Revolver by the Beatles, released in 1966. Don't worry, it's not the last Beatles album on this list either. We're at number 11. We're almost in the top 10. I'm spoiling too much. Number 10. You guys might think this is a little high. I think that it is pretty perfectly placed. If anything, it might be actually a spot or two low. Number 10 is the greatest rap album ever made, okay? Listen, it is the greatest rap album ever made. Don't knock it. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill by Lauryn Hill, released in 1998. The greatest rap album of all time. Said, done, you better believe it. Number 9. Number 9. I ranked this a little too low, I think. Looking at it again, I think I may have ranked it a little too low. But I'm not changing it now, so I guess I gotta just deal with it. The album that started alternative music, pretty much. This was the album that started, it started all experimental, expressive, alternative. Think of a genre. Think of, like, are you a fan of grunge? Are you a fan of punk, proto-punk? Or I guess this is pretty much proto-punk. Are you a fan of... Okay, let me try that again. Are you a fan of grunge? Are you a fan of punk? Are you a fan of new wave? Are you a fan of, any alternative genre at all? Thank Lou Reed. Number 9 is The Velvet Underground and Nico by The Velvet Underground, released in 1967. One of the most legendary albums ever made. And it doesn't matter how much praise you give this album, it's not enough. And I kind of wish I ranked it a few spots higher. Yeah, I kind of wish I did. Heroin and Sunday Morning, those are the 2 best songs on the album. But every song is absolutely flawless. So, just thank this album for any genre that's not rock, just regular classic rock or rap, pretty much. Absolutely timeless. Number 8, Blue by Joni Mitchell, released in 1971. Here it is. You're welcome. It's as simple as that. Of course, it's going to be a top 10 album of all time. Number 7 is Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan. Here's Bob Dylan. I bet you guys are probably complaining like there's a lack of Bob Dylan on here. Here's the big Bob Dylan album. Just be happy I didn't miss that. Number 6. Got this one on vinyl. Tapestry by Carole King. This is according to my list, this is the greatest album made by a female solo artist. There is an album coming up here made by a group, and there's some females a part of that group. But what song don't you know from this album? You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, the title track, Tapestry, Beautiful, Home Again, It's Too Late, I Feel the Earth Move, You've Got a Friend. Come on. Really, this is fantastic. Fantastic. It is the 6th greatest album ever made. Out of all of the albums ever made, this is the 6th best. Number 5. Number 5. Some of you are probably like, oh, this is going to be number 5, and this is still too low. And then others are going to probably be like, why is this all the way up at number 5? Why is this on the list at all? Number 5 is Animals by Pink Floyd. Come on. You can't tell me that this isn't one of the greatest albums ever made. Every song on it is made with such ambition and passion. It just can't, you can't not think about it. Number 4. You guys knew it was going to be up here. Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. I don't need to say anything. You guys knew it was going to be up here, and I totally agree that it should be up here. Released in 1966, Pet Sounds. I honestly don't care for the Beach Boys. Kokomo, this is really good. But I am aware that Pet Sounds is a fantastic album, and it is a top 5 album of all time. And here it is. Number 3. You're Welcome, Abbey Road by the Beatles. I think I have a vinyl of that one too, but I'm not making this video too long. I'm keeping on. Abbey Road by the Beatles, released in 1970. Number 2, the 2nd greatest album ever made. God, I love this album. Gosh, I love this album so much. Number 2, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, released in 1977. Okay, so for this album, pick your poison. I mean, come on. This is Rumors. It's Rumors. It is the album that is impossible to dislike. And I fully stand by that statement. I truly do believe that it is absolutely impossible to dislike this album. And, you know, that's one thing. But add on the fact that the band was literally going through, you know, every member of the band pretty much was going through a giant crisis during the time of recording this album. You know, breakups over here, breakups over there. And they still managed to come together and write the most likable album ever made. How can you not just sit back, think about that, and just think to yourself, wow, that is absolutely insane. They overcame all of this adversity and used their feelings pretty much and their, what they were going through, and they used it as fuel and just put together the most enjoyable album ever made. And you got to really think about that when thinking about this album. That's why it's this high up. I know Rolling Stone put it at number 7 on their 500 greatest albums of all time list. And I honestly think it's higher than that. I mean, that's why it's sitting here at number 2. Now, most people will tell you that the stars of the show for this album are Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. But while they do represent a lot of really great moments from this album, I would say that the person who performed at their, performed the best and is just the best to listen to off of this album is Christy McVie. And I mean, between Songbird, which is basically just a piano ballad that she sings in, and You Make Loving Fun, which are probably my 2 favorite songs off of the album, you realize that she is low-key the best member of Fleetwood Mac, at least during that time. And, you can argue with me on that, and you can say whatever, and honestly, you'd probably be right. But, that you also have to think about the members that aren't, Buckingham and Nicks. They all came together, though. They all came together and performed their best and created an absolute masterpiece, and like I mentioned before, the most likable album ever made. And that's why it is at number 2. Coming in at number 1, it is the only album that you would expect to be on here that I haven't said yet. And you know what? We'll bust out the vinyl for it. Why not? Number 1. You probably guessed it since it has not been mentioned yet. It's simple. It's really simple. But the contents inside is what puts this album above the rest. Number one greatest album ever made is The Wall by Pink Floyd, released in 1979. What do you want me to say about this album? It has everything. It has everything. It is Pink Floyd's magnum opus. I'm pretty sure this is like the 5th or 6th record shown on here by Pink Floyd. And this was the best of them all. The Wall is a very ambitious album, and it's a double album, and a lot of a very wide variety of sounds on here. You got a lot of like their there's a lot of their their basically their patented psychedelic experimental sounds that we heard a lot on Animals and a few of the albums before that. But they also throw curveballs at you as well, giving you flat out hard rock albums. Or did I say albums? Giving you flat out hard rock songs. And other stuff like more orchestral driven pieces like The Trial. And it all comes together to create an absolute monster of an album. This album is it just stands tall among the rest of the albums that were ever released. And for good reason. I just explained part of it, but I can't make a video long. I could make a video talking about this album and just this album, and it would be too long, because that's just how deep this album drives. And in order to get just a little bit of a feel for what this album represents, you have to listen to the whole thing yourself. I prefer listening to it on vinyl, but obviously, you might not have a record player, so you can listen to it any way you want, and it'll still bring an experience that no music listener has ever been on before. And that's basically the best way to describe this album. This album isn't just a compilation of songs. It is, and you know what? And just like other albums, like basically any Pink Floyd album made before this, or Tommy, or the more story-driven concept albums, those are always fun to listen to, but this is more than just a concept album. This is an experience that you can't find with any other album. It is just, I don't even know how to explain it. It's an experience that is so unique. And when you finish listening to the album, you'll probably just be, you'll be one of three things. You'll either be extremely sad that it's over. You'll either be really interested in the rest of Pink Floyd's discography if you haven't heard it, or you'll just be like, what year is it? Because that's the type of trip this album takes you on. And once you're done listening to the album, of course, you can listen to their 1982, I think, I don't really know, their 1982, that's what I'm going to say, movie that's based on the concept album with the same name. And while I'll agree that it's not necessarily the greatest film ever made, it is a very, very interesting watch, and I know that when I watched it, I had a wonderful time watching it, especially with the animated portions of the film. Animated just like the drawings in this, in the inside cover of the album. So this movie has it's spawned a whole universe of content. This album has spawned a whole universe of content. And after explaining all of this, it only becomes more and more clear that this is the greatest album ever written. And I sure hope you guys agree with me. If you don't, it's fine. Like I said at the beginning of part 1, you can't rank these things. You truly can't rank albums. Obviously, some are better than others, but you can't have a definitive answer on which one is the best. And you go from there. My hair is a wreck. Thank you guys for watching. That concludes this very, very, very marathon 2-part video that took forever to complete. Thank you guys for watching. If you don't agree, that's fine. You know, refer to what I just said. I'm not going through that again. The video's long enough. I'll see you guys whenever I upload another video. Thank you. Pink Floyd, baby. Pink Floyd. The album Kings. Alright, see ya.